Welcome back to Basement Integrity Podcast by IcyReno.
Great to be back.
On our last deep dive, EP16, we got into strengthening foundations, optimizing basement use.
Yeah, that was a good one. And it actually tees up today's topic really well.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because that foundation integrity, it's just so tied into a huge issue we see constantly, moisture.
Absolutely. So today we're diving deep into something critical for, well, pretty much every GTA homeowner. Stopping mold, specifically through basement sealing and moisture control.
Right. And speaking from our perspective, working in these basements day in, day out, basements are such valuable spaces, aren't they?
Incredibly valuable. But yeah, they have this unique vulnerability. The moisture, they're right there against the ground, dealing with soil, weather.
And that's often where the trouble starts, isn't it? Because moisture often means, well, mold.
Exactly. And it's really not just about, a stain on the wall or a slightly funky smell.
No, it goes deeper. It's about the air you're breathing upstairs, your family's health.
Precisely. So our goal today, really, is to share what we've learned over the years, working across Toronto, Etobicoke, Scarborough. We want to arm you with the knowledge to understand why mold happens, how to catch it early.
And critically, how we can prevent it, hopefully for good.
That's the plan.
Okay, let's unpack this then. From what we see out there, why are GTA basements just so susceptible to mold?
Well, what's really interesting is how much our local environment contributes. Think about it, our weather patterns, you've got those really harsh freezing winters.
Right, the ground freezing and thawing.
Exactly. Put stress on foundations, then boom, heavy spring rains followed by those humid summers. All that water soaks into the ground.
Creates that hydrostatic pressure pushing against the walls.
You got it. It's constantly trying to get in.
So it's not just about rain hitting the roof, it's the whole year-round cycle affecting the ground.
Precisely. And then you combine that with, the way many GTA homes were built, especially older ones we work on, they might not have had the robust waterproofing we use now. Or foundations develop cracks over time. Maybe the drainage wasn't designed well, or it's just old and failing.
And those little pathways for moisture, they just don't give up, do they?
Yeah.
We see water coming through tiny, tiny cracks sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Even hairline cracks you might barely notice can let enough moisture seep through to start a mold problem. And then there's ventilation.
Right, the lack of airflow downstairs.
Basements are often closed-off spaces below ground. Without good air circulation, moisture gets trapped, humidity shoots up.
And mold just loves that damp, stagnant air.
It really does. It thrives in it.
And then, of course, the more obvious stuff like actual leaks or flooding.
Yes, even what seems minor. Maybe a washing machine hose drips for a while, or you get a bit of water in a big storm. That creates the perfect opportunity for mold to take hold fast.
Especially if the basement isn't properly waterproofed or maybe lacks a good sump pump or proper drainage.
Yeah, those homes are really vulnerable to water just sitting there. And once moisture lingers, those dormant mold spores, they just need that water to wake up and spread. It can become a big problem really quickly from one small incident.
Okay, so moisture gets in, air sits still, mold starts. But like we often tell people, you don't always see it right away. It could be sneaky.
That's so true. It often starts hidden, behind drywall, under carpet, inside wall cavities. You might only see visible signs much later when it's already pretty established.
Which is why catching it early is just vital. Prevents it becoming a massive headache.
Absolutely critical.
So this is key for homeowners listening. Based on our inspections, what are the telltale signs you should be looking for? How can you be your own first line of defense?
Okay, the first clue, very often, is a musky smell. Mold gives off this characteristic, earthy, stale, sometimes almost sickly sweet odor.
Right, that distinct basement smell.
If you notice that smell, especially in certain areas, even if you don't see anything, that's a huge red flag. Trust your nose.
Okay, smell first. Then what about visually? What can you actually see?
Look for visible spots or stains on walls, ceilings, floors. And it's not always that classic fuzzy black stuff.
Yeah.
It can be black, sure, but also green, white, gray, even orange or brown sometimes. Any weird discoloration, staining, or patches that look fuzzy, or maybe even slimy, that's a clear sign.
Got it. And what about just the feel of the air?
Yeah, increased humidity. If your basement just feels way more damp, clammy, humid than the rest of the house, kind of heavy, that means there's excess moisture, and that's fuel for mold.
And surprisingly, maybe sometimes your own body gives you clues.
Yes. This is a big one people can miss. Pay attention to health symptoms. Do you find yourself coughing, sneezing more, have a scratchy throat, watery eyes, maybe skin irritation, sinus issues?
Right.
Stuff that gets worse at home, especially after being in the basement.
And maybe improves when you leave the house.
Exactly. That could very well be mold spores in the air impacting your health. We hear that connection from clients quite often, actually.
Wow, that's a really powerful sign. So, making it a habit, doing regular checks, consciously looking and smelling, that can really help catch things early when they're much easier to fix.
Definitely.
Now, connecting this to the whole house. Mold doesn't just stay put in the basement, does it?
No, absolutely not. As mold grows, it releases tiny spores into the air. Microscopic.
And they're light, so they just float around.
They do. They travel easily through the air, up stairwells, through hallways, and yes, through your HVAC system.
Spreading it everywhere.
Pretty much. They're like tiny seeds looking for another damp spot to land and grow. And think about our climate here in Toronto.
We keep windows shut tight for a lot of the year.
Right. Especially in winter. So those airborne spores get trapped inside, just circulating and concentrating.
Which ramps up the indoor air pollution.
Yeah.
And while anyone can react, some people are more vulnerable.
Yeah, definitely. Certain groups really need to be careful.
Who should be most concerned, based on what we know?
Well, anyone with existing respiratory problems, asthma, chronic bronchitis, bad allergies, they're at higher risk. Also, young children, the elderly, and anyone with a weakened immune system.
Like someone undergoing chemo or with other conditions.
Exactly. Their bodies just can't fight off the effects as easily.
So what kind of health problems are we actually talking about here?
The common ones are respiratory issues, that chronic cough, sneezing, runny nose, throat irritation. If you have asthma or allergies, mold exposure can make them much worse, even trigger attacks.
Okay.
You can also get allergic reactions like red, itchy eyes, skin rashes, hives, persistent sinus infections, and in rarer cases, for people with very low resistance, more serious lung infections are possible.
So it really underscores why keeping mold out of the basement is crucial for a healthy home upstairs, especially for vulnerable family members. It's way beyond just aesthetics.
It's fundamentally about health and well-being.
And it doesn't stop there, right?
Yeah.
Beyond health, mold can actually damage the house itself,
Yeah.
cause structural problems.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. That's another serious consequence that people sometimes overlook.
How does that even happen? Mold eating the house?
Kind of, yeah. The longer it grows unchecked, the deeper its little root-like structures, called hyphae, penetrate into porous materials. Think wood, drywall, insulation, even concrete to some extent.
And it degrades them, weakens them.
Over time, yes, it breaks them down, compromising their structural integrity.
Which I imagine makes repairs way more complicated and expensive later on.
Oh, significantly.
Yeah.
We always stress this. Dealing with the moisture source and any mold early is so much more cost-effective than waiting until you have actual structural damage.
Makes sense. What kind of damage do we typically see?
Well, a big one is rotted wood. Mold can literally rot wood beams, floor joists, support posts. If that happens to critical structural elements, well, that can weaken the foundation or the floors above.
That sounds incredibly serious. What about something like drywall? Seems common.
Yeah, and once mold gets deep into drywall, it's often impossible to fully remove it. You can't just bleach the surface. No, the affected section usually has to be completely cut out and replaced. The spores are just embedded too deep.
Okay. And earlier we talked about cracks letting water in. Does the mold make the cracks worse too?
It can contribute to a cycle. The constant moisture that feeds the mold also puts stress on the materials around the crack, causing it to expand and contract, potentially worsening it over time.
So it's a vicious cycle. More moisture, more mold, worse cracks, more moisture.
Exactly. More water gets in, feeding more mold, causing more damage. It's tough to break that cycle without intervention.
That really paints a picture. Okay, so knowing all these dangers, the signs, the health risks, the structural damage, this brings us to the most important question for homeowners. How do we actually stop it? Prevention seems like the name of the game here.
It absolutely is. Prevention is always the best approach. It's better for your health, better for your house, and usually much less expensive than fixing a big problem later.
Can people do things themselves? DIY approaches?
Sure, some DIY things can help manage surface moisture or clean up very small, contained bits of mold. But, and this is a big but, for a lasting solution that fixes the root cause, you often need professional help.
Because if you just clean the surface, but the water's still getting in...
It'll just come back. We see it all the time. People clean, it looks good for a few months, then boom, it's back because the underlying moisture source wasn't addressed.
Okay, so based on our experience, What are the most effective professional prevention strategies we recommend?
The number one thing, the gold standard, is stopping water from getting into the basement in the first place. That means proper basement sealing and waterproofing.
Which involves what specifically?
It involves things like sealing foundation cracks effectively. We use professional crack injection techniques for that, injecting a special material right into the crack that expands and forms a permanent watertight seal deep inside the wall. It also means installing robust systems like reliable sump pumps and often interior or exterior drainage systems around the house perimeter. These systems actively collect and pump away groundwater and surface water before it can even reach your foundation walls and seep in.
So, sealing the entry points, managing the water around the house. Those are key. What else helps inside?
Improving ventilation is also really important. Good air circulation helps balance humidity levels, especially in naturally damp areas like basements.
Right, stops that stagnant humid air from building up.
Exactly. It helps moist air escape and brings in drier air. Now, dehumidifiers can help manage humidity too, but remember, they don't stop the water from coming in, they just deal with the symptom.
Good point. And like being a detective for signs, regular checks are still important, even if things seem okay.
Absolutely. Periodic checks are crucial, especially if your home is older or, you've had moisture issues before. Simple things, check around pipes, feel walls for dampness, maybe get a cheap humidity meter.
Catches things early.
Yeah, and professional mold inspections can also be really valuable for finding hidden problems before they get serious.
So for homeowners listening, DIY might handle tiny surface spots, but when is it definitely time to call us or another professional?
The biggest signal from our experience is recurrence. If you clean mold and it keeps coming back, that's your sign.
Means the water's still getting in somewhere.
Precisely. That underlying moisture path hasn't been fixed. That's when you need professional basement waterproofing and potentially mold remediation if there's existing growth.
And our team at IcyReno, we offer those specific solutions.
Yes, that's exactly what we specialize in. We do the crack injection to seal those entry points. We offer full interior and exterior waterproofing systems for long-term protection. And if mold is already there, we provide professional mold remediation, safely removing it and putting measures in place to stop it from returning.
Okay, so the bottom line here is clear. Basement mold is serious. It impacts your health. It damages your house.
Absolutely. Addressing moisture through proper sealing and waterproofing isn't just nice to have, it's crucial for your home's long-term health.
Taking these steps protects your family, protects your investment, gives you real peace of mind.
Couldn't agree more.
So if you suspect you might have mold, or you've had water issues, or maybe you just want to be proactive and prevent problems, our team here at IcyReno, we're ready to help.
Yeah, we work right here in Toronto at Etobicoke, Scarborough. We can assess your specific situation and recommend the right solution for your home. We deal with this every single day.
We definitely encourage you to take that first step. Get a clean, healthy basement environment. You can contact us for a free consultation.
Just give us a call. The number is 647-454-6600. We can come out, take a look, and talk through the options. No obligation.
Yes, 647-454-6600. So, as we wrap up, maybe a final thought for you listening. What does this all really mean? It's maybe easy to kind of ignore the basement, right? It's not where we live day to day.
Out of sight, out of mind sometimes.
But when you think about how connected it all is, the basement's health, the air quality upstairs where you do live, the actual structure of your house, maybe ask yourself, what's one step you can take today to make sure the air you're breathing is as healthy as possible, starting right down there from the ground up?